All right, guys, we have Joe Stapleton here, the commentator for the PokerStars. Big Game is making its grand return along with the NAPT, and Joe's got some thoughts here. And so let's get right into it, Joe. After the 12-year hiatus, how does it feel to be back on the commentary team for the NAPT and the return of the Big Game?
Man, on a personal level, it feels really great, obviously. I loved the Big Game. The Big Game was my sort of entry into the industry, at least as people came to know me. I was doing stuff behind the scenes for a while, or stuff that wasn't really on anyone's radar. All of a sudden, I'm on a network TV show. That all got ripped away rather quickly. So, on a personal level, I'm very happy to be back doing the Big Game, but also it seems like this is what the people want too. So not only is it what I wanted selfishly, but it seems to be making a lot of other people happy too. So it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's such a unique kind of structure, and getting everyday average Joes onto the phone with all these poker pros is such an amazing experience, and it's such a unique one to view as a viewer. So, how do you think the dynamics of poker have changed over the past decade, and how will that impact the gameplay that we see on this season?
That's a good question, and I'm not just saying that as a compliment to you. I don't know is the answer, but it's certainly worth thinking about. The game has changed significantly in the last 12 years. Not just strategy and the meta and the way we think about poker, cash game poker, tournament poker, it's all changed, but also sort of the economy has changed. The back in the day when the Big Game was running before, people had a lot more money. People gambled a lot more. People played a lot more recklessly. I think that based on the lineups that we have constructed for the Big Game, we're still going to have plenty of action. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. Poker players are a lot more savvy. They understand things like GTO a lot more. Luckily, I can't give you, by the way, too much in the way of who's in the lineups just yet, other than some of the names that have already been announced. We can get to that in a minute. But I do think that we're going to have a mix of people who play GTO, people who play a little off of GTO, and people who play GTFO, which is, just folks who like have a healthy disregard for money and are just there for fun. So, to answer your question, I don't have a short answer for it, which is probably fine. You probably don't want me to say it'll be different. It'll be the same. But yeah, I don't really know how different it will be, but I assume it's going to be significantly different, but hopefully in a good way.
Yeah, so you mentioned a bit of the lineups and how you can't disclose everything yet. So if you could just take us through the people that are out in the open and are confirmed to be in the lineup, and then after that, share what a dream lineup would be for you for the Big Game.
Cool. So I can tell you this. I'll start with the second question. We have lineups that are pretty close to my dream lineup. Without one or two key names, that I would maybe throw into a dream. I have elements of my dream lineup in this game, which is very cool. We have put together, I'll tell you right now, Phil Locke is playing in one of the 2 days we're shooting the Big Game. He, in my opinion, is the most fun, animated, most hilarious player I've ever seen on a poker TV show. He was my number one choice. We went to him immediately, and he is helping us out. He is coming to play. Jennifer Tilley, his partner in crime, is also playing on the other day. They didn't want to play together. Makes sense. So two people who I think are always great action and great personalities on poker TV shows. Who else can I mention? Lex Veldhaus, originally on the Big Game, I believe got worked pretty hard on the original Big Game. I remember at least one time he lost 100K. Lex is back, and it's kind of like a Return of the Jedi situation for him because Lex has become an even better poker player in the last decade. So that should be an interesting situation. Let's see. Who else is in the game? Arden Cho is playing in the game, and although Arden wasn't really on my radar until like the last year or so, having a Hollywood celebrity who does play pretty big cash in general in her real life, I think is kind of an interesting little twist to have her playing in one of these games. Who else? I don't know if we've announced anyone other than those four yet. So we're going to stick to that. However, if I was going to create a dream lineup, we already said Phil Locke would be in it. Phil Hellmuth would be in my dream lineup. Daniel, obviously, Negreanu would be in my dream lineup. Tony G would be in my dream lineup. I'm just thinking back to how great that chemistry was with some of those folks back in the day. Ivy, right, has got to be in a dream lineup, but I'm old school, right? I'm old school, so maybe I would throw like a Doug Polk in there, someone to rattle these guys a little bit, somebody to bring some of the new school of poker in there. And I'll just say, of the names that I just mentioned, we got some of them. And I haven't revealed everyone that's going to be playing in our game just yet. But I think people are going to be pretty satisfied when they see the eventual lineup. So I wish I could tell you more. About, but it'll all be revealed in a day or two anyway. I just don't have clearance to reveal anything additional right now for you, Poker Flops, Dylan. I apologize.
All good. All good. You mentioned the Tony G and the Phil Hellmuth. Obviously, their chemistry on the show was legendary and absolutely a classic as far as poker goes. You personally have been an integral part to the big game's history. What's your personal favorite moment from the show?
My personal favorite moment from the original big game is an easy answer, but it's because it's far and away just so ridiculous, is the Ernest Wiggins run it 4 times hand. Ernest Wiggins gets his money in bad. He's like a 90% dog. I think he's got like 9%, if I remember correctly. And Phil Hellmuth offers in the chance to run it 4 times. And Ernest manages to spike a 9% win 3 out of the 4 times. Just absolutely insane, bonkers that it worked out like that. And I remember that show, that run of shows, wasn't the first one we filmed, but it was the first one we aired. We basically were like, this is just so ridiculous and so outrageous and is going to get people excited about the show. We have to run this one first. So Ernest ended up being the first loose cannon, even though it wasn't shot that way, because of that run at 4 times hand. None of us could believe it. I mean, when we crunched the numbers on that, I think like statisticians got back to us and said it was something like a 0.000, like a 1/1000th of 1% that would happen 3 of the 4 times. Something in there, 100th of 1%, 1,000th of 1%, whatever it is, infinitesimally small. And the reactions to it are just phenomenal. Ernest's reaction, Locke's reaction, Negreanu, Hellmuth obviously blasts off. I'm one of those people, I actually don't get any pleasure out of watching Phil lose or watching Phil freak out. But unfortunately, that clip is incredibly entertaining. I didn't love the pile-on of Phil afterward, but he seemed to have been so shell-shocked by it. He wasn't even noticing people needling him. He just couldn't believe how unlucky he was in that moment. And that, for me, will always be the greatest moment from the original big game. But the big game on tour, the reboot, let's hope we have some memorable moments coming up next week as well.
Yeah. So going back to the you mentioned poker players playing GTO, non-GTO, and GTFO kind of style poker. What are your thoughts on the balance between poker as entertainment versus poker as a serious game of skill in shows like the big game?
I think that it's the player's money, right? So I don't really get involved in GTO, how entertaining it is or isn't to watch. I happen to find variations from GTO to be a little bit more entertaining as a viewer. But seeing elite competitors playing at the top of their game is another thing, and is something that people do also find very interesting. People love the nitty gritty of poker strategy. So in my ideal sort of TV show, you would have both. You would have players who are playing that sort of strategy, and something for the nerds out there and something for the people that really want to dissect optimal strategy in any given spot. And then we got a loose cannon at the table. We've got some folks who have a little bit more money and aren't professional poker players and they're not playing for a living. So they're going to play a different strategy. So I find it most interesting when you've got those two different forces combined. And obviously, what's the great equalizer in poker is luck, right? In any given day, any person can just sun run and have the day of their poker career and just GTO be damned and end up winning all the money. So, that's what we're aiming for here, and I think we've achieved it.
I agree entirely. I think having a balance of GTO, non-GTO, and just some gamblers there is very much needed to put on an entertainment show. Now, again, the big game has been gone for the last 12 years. You entered the poker world through it. You've obviously made a very great career for yourself in it. How has your own perspective on poker and commentary evolved since you first started?
I don't want to say that it hasn't evolved, but I think what's been really cool is that my shtick has worked and continues to work. People right away, right out of the box for the most part, were really supportive and understood what I was trying to do. And to this day, it feels like they're supportive and understand what I'm trying to do. I have had to learn more poker over the years. Back then, I thought that my poker knowledge was probably like a 7 out of 10. And now I know that my poker knowledge back then was like a 2 out of 10. And now I think that my poker knowledge is probably a 5 out of 10. So it's just funny how perspective, how the more I know, the more I learn about poker, the more I realize I don't know about poker. So that's changed a little bit. And so I've leaned in to not knowing at this point. I've leaned into being like, hey, man, I'm here to entertain you. And if you learn a little something, that's great. But my main goal is to put out a product that is fun to watch and ultimately entertaining people who are tuning in for the first time is more important than satisfying someone who doesn't like the fact that my commentary isn't quite GTO either.
Yeah, that's again totally fair. I mean, just from a personal standpoint, you're my top commentator to watch.
Thanks,
I
buddy.
I got into poker in high school through the big game actually. So this is like personally, this is like a huge full circle moment for me. It's really cool to do this. You yourself and James Hardigan, who are now going to be the judges for the casting portion of the big game. So this is going to be a little bit different than the last go around of the big game. Before it was an online qualifier. Now it's going to be the first 150 people to show up at the NAPT for this bunch of different single table tournaments. So yeah, just tell us about that, what that experience will be like and what you will be looking for in the casting stage.
Yeah, so this all, the big game from before, it was a different time, right? And the United States of America all had online poker, and I think pretty much all 50 states, maybe 49. And so we could run online qualifiers back then. And this came together really quickly. And we figured that the best way to do this that, wouldn't get into any dicey online territory was let's just have a live qualifier in Las Vegas. We're going to have a 180 person shootout. So 20 people are going to win their tables. And from those 20 people, we're going to do live auditions on the spot. Me, James Hardigan, and we're bringing back Nadia Magnus, the original sort of most memorable loose cannon, I would say. I think she played the most number of days. I'm not sure that she won the NAPT passport or not, but she was in the running for a really long time. Nadia's gone on to have a great poker career herself, and, has won a GPI award and gives away lots of seats through her own social media channels, loves to support women in the game, loves giving away seats on her own channel. So we thought, why not have Nadia join us, having been through the experience before, knowing what it's like to be a loose cannon, and in her own time giving away stuff. Now she gets to crown someone else as a loose cannon. So yeah, so the people who win those single table shootouts are going to join us for a casting session. We're going to talk to everyone individually, talk to people in groups, and find out who is going to make the best story, who's going to make the best action, who is going to be the most entertaining person to put in these lineups. We've got 2 spots to fill, and I'm looking forward to it, also dreading it a little bit. I don't want to be telling 18 people, hey, you didn't make it, but at least we'll be able to make 2 people very, very happy.
With the return of the big game, what is one message or experience you hope to deliver to the audience, both old fans and new ones that are going to be stumbling upon the big game?
What I would like, the message I would like to deliver is that poker is fun, and you don't have to be playing at super high stakes to experience that fun. Really, what it for me is always about is people coming together and people. Obviously, poker is elite competition. We've got tournaments for that. We've got high rollers and super high rollers for that. And obviously, this is a high stakes game. But I want people to look at the big game and the fun that we're having, that James and I are having doing commentary, and the fun that the players are having at the table, and think, this is something I want to try. This is something that I think could be fun. And you could play for 0 stakes or very small stakes and have just as much fun. I don't know about you, Dylan, but those are some of my best memories are playing low stakes poker with my buddies and having just as much competition and having just as much and making new friends too at the poker table is something I think that we all did over the last couple of years. A lot of us played online Zoom games, and I've got friends that I know I'll be friends with for life that I made at the poker table. And I want people to see the big game and see how fun it is and think, hey, I think I could give that a shot. I think I could. Obviously, I don't want anyone to start playing 100, 200 right out of the gate, but it's just, I sort of want, if we could get the message of how much fun and what a great social game poker is back out to not just American audiences, but to the world, that would be a really great thing if we could pull that off.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement there as well. I mean, again, like you said, poker is at heart a social game, and to combat against the people that might not necessarily want to see the splashy gambler on the table, or to see even a loose cannon on the table, someone that's not necessarily used to these high stakes points. It brings more eyes to the game. It brings new people to the game, and for those top of the game GTO people, they get to have new fish that they can prey on. So, lastly, I know you're a busy man. You got a lot of stuff to do. The fans are eagerly awaiting for this return. What are the final words you have? Any teasers that you can share with us to get them more excited and anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I want people in general, if they aren't already coming to Las Vegas, to know that the NAPT, so the big game on tour, is tacked on to the return of the North American Poker Tour also, which was a different TV show that we lost 12 years ago due to the same incident, obviously. And, there was a lot of prestige around the North American Poker Tour, so I'm excited for that to be back. And come on out to Vegas. Resorts World is a super nice casino, super fun. It's practically brand new. The main event is 1650. It's $1.5 million guaranteed in the main event for a 1650. So, for me personally, that's like just above my bankroll, right? Like just like I could scrape together a 1650. And there's lots of side events that are far more lower at price point than that. There's $500 events, $600 events. I think even the high roller is a 5K. So I would like people to come on down to Vegas. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be hanging out. I'm going to be milling around this 180 person sit and go for the loose cannon. I'll be there. I'll be sort of watching how things unfold. I'll be there for the whole main event. I'll be there for the high roller. We're going to be streaming 3 days. The 10th, 11th, and 12th. We'll be doing the last 2 days of the main event and the final table of the high roller. So, if you can make your way out to Vegas and come play something, I'm there and I'm down to say what's up. I've never turned down an opportunity. Obviously, I'm busy, but if lots of times James and I will just be like, hey, we'll be at the front lobby of Resorts World for this hour. Anybody wants to come have a drink with us. So we just want people to come down, rub elbows, rub shoulders, and maybe flick it in.
Nice. Love it. Again, being social. It's a social game.
Exactly.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it dearly. Make sure you guys follow Joe on all social media, at Stapes on everything, if I'm correct, right?
At Stapes on Twitter, at InstaStapes on Instagram, and I think I'm Stapes on Blue Sky, and I think I'm InstaStapes still on Threads. So I don't know where everyone's going with the social media at the moment. But yes, yeah, I'm still mostly a Twitter and an Instagram guy.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate the time.
A pleasure, Dylan. I enjoy your work.